What's up? Welcome back. Today, in this section, we're going to talk about what's happening in the mind, brain, and body in relation to complex PTSD. Understanding the neuroscience of complex PTSD is important so that you can start to take your own mental health into your own hands. It will also help you understand why I suggest the treatments that I suggest. The most important thing to understand is this kind of trauma is stored in the mind, brain, and body, not just the mind. Emotional abuse or neglect puts us into a constant survival state, meaning that our autonomic nervous system is constantly in a fight or flight mode. This means access to your prefrontal cortex is diminished. This is important because that is where your motivation, your drive, your attention, your focus all come from. They stem from your prefrontal cortex. With the prefrontal cortex turned off, systems like the amygdala, the hypothalamus pituitary axis, and the autonomic nervous system are all hyperactivated. This releases stress chemicals like epinephrine, adrenaline, and cortisol into our blood. These chemicals are stressors to our system, but can be very good for short bursts of activity to keep us safe and for our survival. In fact, in exercise, you also release these same types of chemicals. I wanted to mention this really quick so that you don't think that these chemicals are always bad. The difference between stress like exercise and stress or trauma that could lead to complex PTSD is with exercise, you go for an hour and then you rest and recuperate. Inside of a traumatic relationship or something like that, you don't ever have time to rest and recuperate. So your nervous system stays stuck in this hyperactivated state, which leads to complex PTSD over time. This chronic stress state creates low-grade inflammation in our mind, brain, and body. And this is what leads to the symptoms of complex PTSD we talked about earlier. This is happening predominantly because trauma is stored in our bodies. Okay, so how does trauma get stored in the body? You might have heard this before, but probably have no idea how it's actually happening mechanistically. So let's break it down. So what's happening is that your peripheral nervous system, which is your nervous system that is outside your brain and your spinal cord, it is taking in all the sensory information from all around you. And in this case, that would be abuse. So it sends signals through your nerve cells, through your brain, up to your mind. And when the trauma gets up to your mind says, whoa, I can't hold on to this. I can't handle this. Brain, you hold on to this. To which the brain says, whoa, I don't have space. Every single one of my nerves is accounted for. I can't hold on to this. I'm going to send it back down to the body. So the brain sends this traumatic message back down to the body through the hypothalamus, which then it gets converted into an endocrine message from an electrochemical message or a nerve message. This is how it gets stored in our bodies through our hormones and our immune system. This then gets stored in places like our muscles, our fascia, our skin, and can show up as things like chronic pain, eczema, headaches, and tons of other symptoms. This is how trauma gets stored in our bodies, and it's super important to understand when healing things like complex PTSD. It's also important to understand because bottom-up methodologies that go from the body to the brain to the mind have been shown to be more effective in scientific literature and my own work with clients. In the next section, we will talk about the difference between top-down and bottom-up methodologies for healing complex PTSD.